want to start off by thanking all of you for coming out tonight to this information meeting. We also want to welcome those watching online as we hope to answer many of your questions. My name is Scott Menace, and I will be our moderator for tonight. First things first, I want to thank a quick thank you to Rise Church and Richard Gerganis for opening up the doors here. Richard has been in our community for 25 years, and him along with Jason Cockrell pastor this church. They also have a campus in Nashville and one in Wilson. Unfortunately, both of them are out of town tonight, and prior arrangements made long in advance. I did get a chance to talk to Pastor Richard and ask him if he had anything that he wanted to convey, and he said simply that he felt that it was important to help get any information out there that would help unify this city. As a pastor, it is his goal to bring people together and not tear them apart. Further, it is both my understanding and his that although it is being held here at Rise Church, this was not the first or second venue of choice. Nash Community College and the Dunn Center at Wesleyan were the first two choices, but Nash didn't respond and Wesleyan wanted a fee. So for those that are here tonight or watching online and believe this is just another Christian versus casino session from a church, that is simply not the case. This location was just the first free location to be offered up and big enough to house those in the public that would like to come out. With that being said, here to represent Rise Church is Nashville campus pastor and one of our community leaders as head of human resources with Chick-fil-A in Rocky Mount, Mr. Trey Sanderson. Is going to come and open up a prayer.
If everybody would bow our heads, we'll pray. Heavenly Father, we know that first and foremost, you are the source of all knowledge, all wisdom. And God, I just thank you that you provided us with an opportunity to come together as a community. And Lord, I pray that you would just send your peace into this meeting tonight, Lord, that it would be constructive, that it would be a time of bonding in the community. Lord, as we simply just try to be your hands and your feet, we just pray that you would do exactly what you want, and we give you all the glory in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Trey. Before we move on to tonight's speakers, I want to take a moment and say it is our goal to make tonight as informative as we can with as little distractions as possible. Therefore, given the size of the room and to save time, we will not be passing the microphone around tonight. Instead, all of our guest speakers are going to share what they came here to say without interruption. As they are speaking, you'll be able to write on a piece of paper that was given to you when you first walked in, and just write down any question that you have. We will collect those slips. And when the time is right for the Q&A, I will read those questions, and then I will give the panel the floor to answer your questions. Robbie, I believe you're the last one to speak. Is that correct? That was right?
I believe so,
yeah. So when Robbie finishes speaking, go ahead and start getting ready to hand your slips in. So go ahead and do that. I do ask that you make your questions as legible as possible. So that we can read them properly, but also so that we can hopefully get the best answer to your question. Any questions that become redundant will be skipped in order to allow more time for more questions. Tonight's guests are President John Rustin of North Carolina Family Policy Council, Reverend Mark Creech, Executive Director of Christian Action League of North Carolina, Wayne Outlaw, Nash County Commissioner Vice Chairman, Robert Davis, Nash County Commissioner Chairman, and Mr. Ken Dozier. Sorry for my initial. Also invited and unable to attend is State Senator Lisa Barnes and State Representatives Alan Chester and Ken Fontenot. Having said that, Mrs. Barnes has created a statement that we will read, and Mr. Chester did speak with me for a while the other day, and he expressed some things that truly I believe would have been valuable to hear. But given the fact that he couldn't be here to clarify anything that I may paraphrase wrong, he asked for me not to bring his name up. So, Mr. Fontenot did, we reached out to him and we were not able to get hold of him. So let's see here. Mrs. Barnes' statement: as the elected senator of District 11 and a dedicated advocate for this community, I support ongoing discussions surrounding the proposed rural tourism incentive program entertainment districts in North Carolina. Throughout my time in the General Assembly, I have consistently championed initiatives that stimulate economic growth, create jobs, and enhance the quality of life for North Carolina residents. I believe this particular concept aligns with those goals, generating substantial revenue, tourism, and job opportunities that will significantly grow and enhance our local communities without any taxpayer-funded incentives. After listening to and talking with the people in Nash County, I strongly believe that this cannot move forward without the necessary input from residents and local leaders. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to John Rustin with North Carolina Family Policy Council.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Rise Church, for hosting this forum. This is an incredibly important time for this community and for our state. There are significant decisions yet to be made in the North Carolina General Assembly and locally regarding the matters of casinos, commercial casinos in North Carolina. So I really greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I really appreciate each and every one of you coming out to learn more, hopefully, to participate in this forum and to express your interest and concern about this issue. So thank you for being here. I was actually here in Nash County 3 weeks ago, and I was also in Rockingham County along with my friend and colleague, Reverend Mark Creech, 2 weeks ago, talking with a group of pastors there about this issue. Because these are two of the counties, Rockingham and Nash County, along with Anson, that are proposed sites or locations for these casinos, along with another casino that would be operated by the Lumbee Indian tribe somewhere in an undesignated place in southeastern North Carolina. Just a little bit about the Family Policy Council. Some of you may be familiar with us. We are a statewide nonprofit research and education organization that seeks to stand for biblical values, for family values in our state's public policy arena. So we really start with biblical principles and then apply those principles to proposals that our lawmakers on the local level, on the state level, and on the federal level are considering. And so we have a primary focus in the state legislature and work to educate our state lawmakers about the decisions they're making and votes they're casting on issues that affect us in our personal lives in lots of different areas. We have been researching gambling for over 3 decades in North Carolina. And we've learned a lot in those 30 years of researching. Just to start out, why we are concerned about this issue is that decades of research clearly demonstrates that the more prevalent gambling is, and the more forms of gambling that are legalized and advertised, the more citizens are going to gamble. It's just a simple fact. Different forms of gambling also cater to different interests of different people. Those who play the lottery may never step foot into a casino. Those who play video poker machines at a local sweepstakes parlor may not ever purchase a lottery ticket. So different forms of gambling, like sports gambling, horse racing, those types of things, cater to different people with different interests. But the more forms of gambling that are legal and that exist, the more people are going to gamble. And of those who do, a significant percentage are going to develop a pathological or problem gambling issue. And like with many addictions, problem and pathological gambling manifests itself in a host of social and economic harms, including increases in theft, embezzlement, job loss, personal bankruptcy, substance abuse, domestic violence, child abuse, divorce, and even suicide. This is the human cost of legalized gambling and gambling addiction, and this is why we at the North Carolina Family Policy Council care so deeply about this issue. So as you may be aware, about 2.5 months ago, the North Carolina General Assembly authorized statewide sports gambling, basically turning every smartphone, tablet, computer, and smart TV in North Carolina into a potential gambling device. This legislation also legalized pari-mutuel wagering on horse racing in North Carolina, something that we haven't had here, in my knowledge, since our state came into existence. Then, just 2 weeks ago, the State Lottery Commission voted to implement what's called digital instance, or e-instance, which is essentially online video gambling under the umbrella state lottery. So where you can go into a convenience store and buy a scratch-off lottery ticket, soon you will be able to go online, create your own online account with the state lottery, and play video games that mimic video slots, video poker, and other games. And a lot of these games, unfortunately, have themes that cater to or would be of interest to children. That's really concerning to us. And this just happened, you probably didn't hear about it, but this just happened a couple weeks ago. And now our lawmakers in the state legislature are discussing legalizing up to 4 commercial gambling casinos in North Carolina, as well as expanding and allowing video lottery terminals in the state, which are basically video poker machines that are connected to the state lottery and that would be located in convenience stores and restaurants and other places across our state. The estimate is that if the legislature authorizes video lottery terminals, that we will have tens of thousands of additional video poker machines across the state. So why have our state leaders suddenly come down with gambling fever, you may ask? I think the only reasonable explanation is that it's just all about the money. This is what we continue to hear as we go into communities. I was here again a few weeks ago, and we were in Rockingham County. And this is what we heard from folks on the ground, that this is what they're telling us. It's going to bring in a bunch of jobs, and it's going to bring in a bunch of money. It is all about the money. There was if you were watching the news this afternoon, you may have seen a report from WRAL in Raleigh. This report says $500,000 in gambling and marijuana campaign donations flowed to lawmakers considering related votes. The report goes on, and it's Bob Hall, who used to be the executive director of Democracy North Carolina, who did this extensive study to look into campaign contributions to our state lawmakers from those in the gambling industry. One thing that he points out in this report, if I could put my fingers on it, he said that he has identified 38 gambling-related businesses and associations that are paying 71 different lobbyists in Raleigh to represent the gambling industry. And he was clear to point out this does not include those who were lobbying for sports gambling and also the major sports teams and like the NFL, the associations. But these are 71 lobbyists who have been registered and are being paid to represent the gambling industry, specifically casinos and video lottery terminals and video gambling in North Carolina. So yes, it is all about the money, and it's the gambling industry that sees huge dollar signs, and that's why they're paying an untold amount in campaign contributions and to hire lobbyists to try to compel our state lawmakers to approve this proposal. And I will admit, a massive gambling development in Nash County, in Rockingham County, and Anson County, somewhere in southeastern North Carolina, is likely to produce some jobs, especially during the construction of a development this large. And yes, under the draft bill that we have seen, although there's nothing really that's public that gives details about what this proposal is all about, the state would collect 22.5% of the profits, the gambling profits, that would then go to whatever purposes the legislature deems are worthy of receiving these funds. So that is essentially tax money that would flow into state coffers. But it's important to recognize that the vast majority of these millions and potentially billions of dollars come directly out of the pockets of North Carolina citizens and those who may come here to participate in gambling. And I think it's important to take a look at casinos. And what are these casinos all about? Today's casinos are huge, enormous, all-in-one commercial developments. Not just gambling facilities. It's not just a standalone gambling facility. They include restaurants, hotels, entertainment venues, retail space, etc., to keep customers who go in locked in for as long as possible. If you look at the design of casinos, there are no windows, there are no clocks on the walls, so you can't tell what time it is. You can't say, oh, the sun's still out, I'm okay, but when the sun goes down, I need to go home. No, they're designed, and all the games are designed, the design of the actual layout of the gambling floors are such to keep participants in there playing as long as possible. So I printed off, you may have heard that one of the things that's driving this interest in gambling casinos in North Carolina is that the state of Virginia has approved some casinos up there. And there's one currently in construction across the border above Greensboro in Danville, Virginia. So I printed out a information page about this casino, and this is what they say. The property plans include a 500-room hotel, a world-class casino gaming floor with over 1,300 slots, 85 table games, 24 electronic table games, a WSOP poker room, I'm not sure what that is, and a Caesars Sportsbook, so they'll be doing sports gambling there as well. In addition, the resort will feature a full-service spa, a pool, high-quality bars and restaurants, a 2,500-seat state-of-the-art live entertainment theater, and 40,000 square feet of meeting and convention space. It's not just a casino. It's a huge, massive development. What do you think the impact of this is going to be on an existing restaurant in that area, on an existing hotel, on existing retail establishments, on convention space, entertainment space, movie theaters, those types of things? It will have a devastating effect because these casinos are designed to keep people locked in to spend all of their money. Casinos cannibalize the local economy and compete directly against local restaurants, hotels, retail stores, and other entertainment venues, and they divert customers away from them. They also siphon money away from the local spending on consumer goods and savings. Remember, how do casinos make money? Do they make money when you win? They only make money, they make money when you lose. So they take advantage of folks in the area and those who come in. The casinos are always going to take their share, and losers are going to walk out the doors. This is what casinos are all about. And casinos, research shows over and over again, are magnets for crime, for violence, for illegal gambling operations, prostitution, and human trafficking. So this is what you're inviting, not you, but those who are pursuing this are inviting into your community. A couple things, and I want to not take up a tremendous amount of time here, but I do want to mention a couple things that we're hearing kind of in the legislative arena and also locally as we're talking with folks. And they say lawmakers are going to pass this bill, or they're going to push this bill in the budget. And it's part of the budget, and the thing about that is that it's going to take years for these casinos, if they are approved by the General Assembly and cited in locales across the state, it's going to take years for them to get established and start generating money. If the legislature authorizes video lottery terminals, it's going to take at least a year for those to come online, for them to start generating money. These proposals have absolutely nothing to do with this year's state budget. The budget's already several months past due, and for the legislators to say we have to do this as part of the budget is just false. If they do it as part of the budget, it's an effort to shield them from having an up or down vote on this issue in and of itself and being accountable to citizens in their communities about that vote. One other thing that we're hearing too that concerns me a lot is we need to have local referenda votes to approve these casinos. This is actually what Virginia did. The problem with that is what I'm seeing, and I've seen some resolutions, and I think they're well-meaning resolutions from boards of commissioners and some city councils that basically say, let the people have the right to vote. My concern about that is that if you oppose or are concerned about having a casino in your area, you need to precede that statement with, I oppose casinos. But if the General Assembly is going to move forward with this, then we definitely need to have a right to vote. I support the right to vote, but don't acquiesce, because what some legislators will hear if you say let the people vote is, oh, the people in Rocky Mount and Nash County want to have a vote on the casino, so that's what we're going to allow them to do. That's what they're asking for. If you oppose a casino, you need to be very clear in your opposition to the casino, but then say, condition that on if the legislature does pass that legislation, then we demand a right to vote, and you should have that right to vote. So you may be asking, and I'm sure the other speakers will have some additional information to offer as well on this, but I did bring some handouts that will be available on the way out for you to pick them up that list your members of the legislature, the members of the State House and the State Senate, as well as the President Pro Tem of the Senate, the leader of the Senate, Senator Phil Berger, who happens to be from Rockingham County, and also Speaker of the House, Tim Moore. This has got their contact information on it. I would encourage you, if this is something that concerns you, to call each and every person on this list and express your concerns to them. They need to hear from you, especially if you live in Nash County. You have an incredibly important role to play, because you are likely to be incredibly impacted by this proposal if it does move to fruition. So please be sure to pick up one of those handouts on your way out and reach out to these lawmakers and contact them. We also have information on our website at the North Carolina Family Policy Council. Our website is simply ncfamily.org. Again, that's ncfamily.org, and we've got lots of information in ways that you can contact your legislators on our website as well. So I look forward to the remainder of the evening from hearing from our other speakers, and certainly would be available to try to answer any questions that you all may have. But I really do want to say a sincere thank you for being here, for your interest in this issue, enough to come out on a Thursday night to participate in this forum. So thank you very much.
Good evening, Nash County. I'm Reverend Mark Creech. I'm the Executive Director of the Christian Action League of North Carolina, a statewide Christian public policy organization that has a full-time presence, thank you, in the North Carolina General Assembly. We lobby, just as John mentioned, many of the same issues that the North Carolina Family Policy Council addresses, we address as well. As a matter of fact, John and I have been working together now for approximately 23 years. And I'm so very thankful to see this many people concerned about this critical issue which you are facing here in Nash County. Thank you very much for inviting me. I want to start tonight by posing a question. What if I were to tell you that countless individuals, just like you and me, are willingly throwing away their hard-earned money, their futures, and even their families, all for a chance at overwhelmingly unlikely odds of getting rich quick? Welcome to the world of gaming. Gaming, that's the new and more appealing word used for gambling, an industry that has captivated countless minds and hearts today, but has left a trail of devastation and despair in its wake. I stand before you here tonight in hope that I might shed some light on this pressing issue, which has exponentially gripped our culture with its dazzling lights and sounds, glamour and opulence, and tantalizing promises of wealth. It has become a serious problem that knows no boundaries of age, gender, or socioeconomic background, affecting millions not just nationwide, but worldwide. If we're to be responsible citizens, we must acknowledge the harsh reality that it represents. For gambling comes to us as an angel of light, but it morphs into a devilish outbreak that cannot be ignored. Tonight, we find ourselves faced with a tremendous dilemma. Gambling not only poses a grave threat to the financial stability of individuals and families, but more importantly, it jeopardizes the very foundations of liberty. From the addictive nature of gaming activities to the devastating consequences it inflicts upon individuals and our collective social fabric, it is crucial that we address the issue not in some shallow way, but in a manner that gets to the very heart of it, that gets to the very root of it. And only as we approach the issue like this can we be expected to effectively stand firm against it, safeguarding our families, ourselves, our communities, our collective spirit, and yes, again, I say, our freedom. First, let's take a look at the morality of gambling. Although there's no direct command from the Bible, if you will, which says, "Thou shalt not gamble," gambling is condemned by various principles that we find in Scripture. What is more, I think we can also say that the very nature of gambling works against the most fundamental principles that Christianity seeks to inculcate into a culture. Gambling violates 2 of the 10 commandments. The 8th commandment says, "Thou shalt not steal." Will you say that with me? Thou shalt not steal. While gambling masks itself as harmless entertainment, the odds are always stacked against the players, stealing away their dollars and sometimes even their lives. Gambling is, without question, an effort to obtain somebody else's property without providing anything of value in return. And that's why many have rightly referred to it as a form of consensual theft. Now, some will try to justify gambling by insisting that playing is strictly something voluntary. Nobody's stealing from anyone, they object. No one forces people to gamble. They do so of their own free will. But just because someone does something of their own free will doesn't justify exploiting their weakness for one's own gain, especially since the Scriptures command that we are to love our neighbor as ourselves. In other words, unlike any other legitimate business practices where both parties in a transaction gain, gambling creates a scenario in which people are widely duped of their possessions in a something-for-nothing exchange, which truly is nothing less than a form of theft. The 10th commandment says, "Thou shalt not covet." Covetousness is essentially an inordinate desire to possess money or property or possessions or something that belongs to someone else. There's only 3 ways to legitimately acquire property in life. Number one, as a gift. Number two, as a payment for labor. And number three, in a fair exchange of goods. Anything else is but a form of covetousness, and gambling certainly doesn't fit any of these three criteria. Albert Mohler, president of Southern Baptist Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, has eloquently written, "The Bible is clear on this issue. The entire enterprise of gambling is opposed to the moral worldview revealed in God's Word. The basic impulse behind gambling is greed, a basic sin that is the father of many other evils. Scripture repeatedly addresses greed, covetousness, and avarice as a sin against God, often with graphic warnings of the destruction that is greed's result. The burning desire for earthly riches leads to frustration and ultimately spiritual death." The Apostle Paul warned, "People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." And then gambling oppresses the poor. The Old Testament is filled with passages that exhort against the oppression of the poor and the deprived in life. The prophet Zechariah said, "Oppress not the widow, nor the fatherless, the stranger, nor the poor, and let none of you imagine evil against his brother in his heart." There is absolutely no question that the enterprise of gambling preys upon the desperation of the poor. David Frum, a special assistant for former President George W. Bush from 2001 to 2002, recently contributed an article to CNN that provided information from independent research done by the Institute of American Values. And this is what Frum said. Quote, "The industry as a whole targets precisely those who can least afford to lose and earns most of its living from people for whom gambling has become an addiction. The IAV report cites a Canadian study that finds that 75% of casino customers who play only occasionally provide only 4% of casino revenues. It's the problem gambler who keeps the casino in business." Before the spread of casino gambling, the IAV comments, the typical gambler was more affluent than average. It cost money to travel to Las Vegas, but that is no longer the case. That's no longer true. Low-income workers and retirees now provide the bulk of customers for the modern casino industry. And because that industry becomes an important source of government revenue, the decision to allow casino gambling is a decision to shift the cost of government from the richer to the poor, and within the poor to a subset of vulnerable addiction problems. And Frum concludes, asking this pointed question, is this really okay? Are Americans content to allow the growth of an industry that consciously exploits the predictable weakness of its most vulnerable citizens? And then we could rightly say that gambling undermines stewardship. We have, each of us, we have a stewardship responsibility for the things that God in His sovereignty gives to us. Stewardship one of the most widespread teachings throughout the Bible. God holds us accountable for the use of the possessions under our control, which includes everything from our time, our talents, our spiritual gifts, our influence, and our material possessions. We are first to recognize that all of these are loaned to us from God. It all first belongs to Him. And so we are to use them to provide for our basic needs, to support our families, to contribute to the work of God's kingdom, to meet the needs of others, to give to the poor and the needy, and where necessary, to support our government. Jesus spoke about this in his parable about the talents. The people in the parable who didn't fruitfully use their treasure were admonished and punished. Only those who had invested wisely were commended with the Savior's crowning affirmation, "Enter thou into the joy of your Lord." You see, gambling risks in the winner the gifts that God has graciously given to us. The overwhelming majority of the time, gambling is no more than unwise speculation with an almost certain negative return. It's not even a calculated risk. The odds are always against the gambler, and if the gambler plays long enough, he is going to lose. In the movie Casino, starring Robert De Niro as Sam Ace Rothstein, De Niro's character, which is based on the real-life person of Frank Lawrence, Lefty Rosenthal, a casino executive, says, "In a casino, the cardinal rule is to keep them playing and to keep them coming back. The longer they play, the more they lose. In the end, we get it all." And although that's just a movie, I suggest to you that no statement about casinos has ever been closer to the truth. Therefore, gambling is not stewardship, it's stupidity. And why would any of us with good judgment want to use so foolishly what God has so graciously given? And then the scriptures teach that gambling diminishes faith. The scriptures teach that each of us is to look to God as our provider and to be content with all the blessings that we receive at His hand. Gaining indicates our lack of trust and dissatisfaction with His provision. The psalmist said, "Thou, O Lord, openest thine hand and satisfy the desire of everything." And Jesus said to us, "Don't worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father already knows that you need them." You see, the concept of luck challenges the sovereignty of God. One of the clearest biblical references to gambling in the Bible is from the prophet Isaiah, who protested those whom he said, "Forsake the Lord, who forget His holy mountain, who set the table for fortune and fill cups of mixed wine for destiny." In that passage, Isaiah was condemning the pagan gods of his day that represented fate and luck and fortune. Listen, when luck comes into the picture, God is no longer a part of the equation. Did I hear amen or amen? God goes out. God's not some old fellow with a white beard sitting on his throne in some distant corner of the cosmos, far removed from our situation. Instead, God is active in the lives of His people. And when we turn to the tables of luck and chance, We are denying his activity. We are denying his benevolent providence over us. In his book, Seducing America, Is Gambling a Good Bet? Author Rex Rogers eloquently writes, "For many Americans, gambling has become a surrogate religion, a pathological hope, a concession to life based on luck, an admission that there is nothing to life but determinism, fatalism, nihilism, but gambling is rabbit's foot religion." It is postmodern paganism. And you pastors, listen to me. Gambling, since it comes from covetousness, is idolatry. And finally, I thank you for letting me be so forthright. But I've just got a few more things to say, and I promise it won't take long, but I want to talk to you about the way that surprisingly, gambling is an assault on liberty. Vice might be defined as something that negatively impacts one's behavior patterns, so as to not only make something detriment to themselves, but also to make it a detriment to others. Some examples of vice would include alcohol abuse, drugs, peddling and practice of sexual immorality, theft, bribery, corruption, illicit trade, and gambling. And we have laws that address every one of these. Although I must tell you, sadly, many of these laws have either been repealed in recent years or significantly loosened, for which I suggest to you tonight there is a reason. Behind it is an unseemly philosophy today which says that there should be no prohibition on the vices. No prohibition on prostitution, no prohibition on drugs, no regulation or controls on alcohol sales, no prohibitions on gambling. And many times those who hold this misguided view will say such laws, they just don't work. Typically they raise the history of the era of prohibition on alcohol sales to say that limits on any of the vices have proven to be futile and failed policies. Well, I want to tell you something. I strongly disagree with that conclusion. And I've been researching this for 23 years. And I think there's a strong argument to be made for the success of prohibition, even though I assure you tonight that I'm not trying to make the case for bringing it back. That question has long been settled. But just let me add, most people don't know that when prohibition of alcohol was repealed in 1933, the average annual rate of liquor consumption was down by only a few ounces per person. Not until the year of 1975 did American annual per capita alcohol consumption return to pre-prohibition rates. Moreover, during that period of prohibition, there was a dramatic decrease in domestic violence rates, murders, workplace absenteeism, and alcohol-related illnesses like liver disease. So, I suggest to you tonight that prohibition was not a failure, and neither did it result in significant increases in crime. That is most unfortunately a modern-day myth. But hear me out. The reality is, however, that no prohibitive law will ever succeed in getting everybody to comply with it. Whether we are talking about a prohibition on murder or stopping at a red light at a busy intersection, there will never be unanimous social endorsement or adherence. But that does not mean we need to do away with such laws and legalize violence. Laws against vice are necessary for curbing harms and protecting health and safety. Even more important to understand, and here's where I want you to hear me the most, even more important to understand is the fact that the commerce of vices undermines and assaults the liberty of ordinary citizens. Where social vices are made legal, marketed, and sold, we are giving to one group of our citizens permission to subjugate their fellow citizens for their own private gain. And that is immoral, and that is an assault on freedom. And when a bill, not long ago, when a bill came before the North Carolina Senate to legalize sports gambling in our state, the bill's champion said that the measure was about freedom. Well, I jumped up and replied in my testimony before the committee, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, whose freedom are we talking about here? Is this only about the gambler's liberty to gamble? If it is, then we should also take into account that the gambling industry, the most predatory industry in the country, purposely targets and exploits the financially desperate and cultivates addiction for profits. Ask compulsive gamblers if they feel free. Furthermore, and this applies to you folks, what about those of us who don't gamble, but still have to share in the high social costs that come with legalized betting? Gambling operators don't pay for the harms that they cause families and businesses and communities. It's us taxpayers that do. So what about the freedom of those of us who choose not to gamble, but are saddled with sharing its high social cost, whether we like it or not? What is free about that? Legalizing a vice like sports gambling or casinos doesn't work for the liberty of all of us, just the gamers who make suckers of the most of us, with our government's permission and cooperation. Liberty is not the repeal of anything deemed to be moral restraint by law. Don't confuse liberty with license. They aren't the same. But somebody says, yeah, but Reverend Creeks, look, guys like you, well, you're a bit of a dinosaur because you failed to recognize that you cannot legislate morality. Well, let me suggest that is a very tired argument, which is completely unhinged from reality. Legislation and public policy don't operate in a moral vacuum. All public policy is the codification of some moral premise. It is the means by which we develop a moral premise in our culture about what's right and what's wrong, and then we draw parameters according to law, and we say, if you violate those parameters, we're going to penalize you, we're going to fine you, we'll even throw you in jail. So it's not that we shouldn't legislate morality. We do legislate morality. We have always legislated morality, and the great question has always been, whose morality are we going to legislate? Now, I assume in closing that those of you who are here tonight are here because you're concerned citizens, and you are prepared to fight. And I I commend you for that spirit. Because what's being proposed for your community is immoral and bad business. And I want you to remember, bad business runs off good business. Always. Gambling is a powerfully seductive force that enthralls and entices, yet wields a devastating grip of ruin. I especially want to take the opportunity tonight to encourage any of the religious leaders, the pastors who are here, to speak out and lead on this issue. May I say something? I was a pastor of 20 years before taking this position which I have today. And I've been in for 23 years. And I want to say something tell you something that I say with a broken heart. And I mean it with a broken heart. I am so sick and tired of cowardly pastors who will not defend the sheep, who will not defend the flock, who will not run off the wolves. Pastors need to be in the very vanguard of an issue like this and take the lead and be a moral figure that the community can get behind. I want you to give the Christian Action League your email address tonight. There's a paper out over in that vestibule area you can sign. We want to be able to keep you regularly informed about what's happening in the General Assembly. We want to be able to provide to you talking points that you can use to make the case for why this should not come to Nash County. And if we have your contact information, we can do that. I promise you, we're not going to inundate you with fundraising requests. We're here to serve. But we need your contact information, and I hope that you'll give it to us tonight so that we can keep you informed and so that we can provide you with the necessary admonition. And that if you need the Christian Action League for anything, we're here to help you. The North Carolina Family Policy Council is here to help you, and we're with you on this issue. 100% we're with you, and we're praying for you, and we're praying that God will give you victory. And we want to ask that you pray for us as we talk directly to lawmakers every day about this issue, as we lobby on your behalf, and as we try to bring the great and wonderful eternal principles of God's Word to bear upon the political process. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting me be here.
Good evening. I'm never ashamed to say that God has blessed me beyond my wildest imagination. He blessed me with a wonderful wife that I met when I was 16. From that marriage, we have one daughter, we have one grandson, my pride and my joy. My grandson had a kidney transplant when he was 2 years old. At the age of 5, he looked at my wife, he calls her Mama. He said, Mama, he said, I'm this many now. She said, how many is that, baby? He said, it's a handful. And he's still a handful today. He graduates soon from Campbell University. He'll go on to get his master's at North Carolina Wesleyan.
where he is currently employed. I'm very proud of my family. Everything I do and everything I say, I do it for God, I do it for country, I do it for my family. So I'm here tonight for that reason. And I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank the Rise Church for hosting this event. And I want to thank you for giving me just a few minutes to kind of bring this thing back home to Nash County and share some things that I think you can totally relate to. I'm going to talk about, obviously, the casino, which has quickly evolved to an entertainment center. And I want you to know that I'm not here to be critical of anyone. Everyone has the right to think and feel the way they feel. So I'm not going to be critical of anyone. And all I ask is that the people here and the people that will hear this later don't be critical of me because I feel the way I feel. I have a right to feel the way I feel. I will say that the overwhelming majority of individuals that contact me, and it's many, every day, and it's more and more every day, they do not support bringing a casino to Nash County. If you would like to share your thoughts on this subject with me, see me after the meeting. I'll give you my contact information. It is also available on the Nash County website. For those that know me, I'm not going to shy away from expressing my opinion. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to try not to be as passionate as I am sometimes, but I'm going to say what's on my mind. So I want to tell you, as a member of the Nash County Board of Commissioners, the board has publicly stated its position in a 6-to-1 vote through resolution to the North Carolina General Assembly calling for a local referendum, which would give all voting age citizens the right to have a voice in this matter. This is a significant matter we're dealing with, and I personally believe that that's the right thing to do. But you need to understand, and it's important to understand, that we cannot conduct a local referendum without approval from our legislators, the legislature, the North Carolina General Assembly. So I trust, I've spoken to our local legislators, and I trust that they would support that if and when it comes before the General Assembly. Now, with that said, this evening, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Nash County Board of Commissioners. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a lifelong resident of Nash County. I graduated from the public school system. I went into the United States Air Force. I proudly served 6 years in the Air Force. I served 2 tours of duty in Korea. I was away from Nash County during those 2 tours. I got out of the military. I went to work at Abbott Laboratories. It's a wonderful company. They provided me with an opportunity to go back to school and get a formal education after my wife had encouraged that strongly. So some time I spent with Abbott in Chicago is another time that I've been out of county. But other than that, I've been in Nash County my entire life. I did work at Abbott for over 31 years. And I need to make it very clear up front that I do not support a casino in Nash County. My reasons are common sense based and are primarily related to the probable, most likely, human cost, which you're about to hear a little bit about. So what do I mean by human cost? Let's start with the obvious human cost. and addiction to gambling. Supporters will tell you that it is an individual's decision if they want to gamble. And it is. It's unfortunate that many will yield to the temptation to gamble, hoping to hit it big, solving all of their financial woes. Chances are it will not happen. A casino is a business. It does not produce a product, but it's a business. It's a business designed to help you lose your money. I think that's clear to everybody. When you leave here tonight, stop by your local convenience store, buy a lottery ticket if you like. You can get one for a couple of bucks. Your odds are 1 in 300 million that you will win. So chances are you're going to lose that money. My personal belief is that most people, most of you, maybe all of you, most people in Nash County would never darken the door of a casino if not at their back door. Although some do, and I hear them talking about it, most of us are never going to go to Danville, Virginia, never going to drive to Danville, Virginia, or fly on a private jet to Atlantic City to gamble. I don't believe there may be some in this room that do that. That's not for me, and that's not something that I would want to do. But gambling can lead to other forms of addiction, such as substance abuse. Now that's no stranger to Nash County. I heard this said by one elected official this way, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is basically what that elected official said. We can just use some of the additional revenue to deal with matters such as this. So make the money through the casino and then use some of the revenue to deal with addiction. To that I simply say, are you serious? Are you really serious? I just can't imagine that type of mindset. Legalized gambling at this level can also lead to increased crime. I don't make this stuff up. I do a little bit of research. You can do the same thing and you can see the same information. If it were not the case that it leads to increased crime, tell me why the sheriff's office would say, if we bring a casino to Nash County, I need more people, I need more resources. Common sense. You're going to have crime, you're going to have people and resources to deal with it when it moves away from the casino. And when it moves away from the casino, it moves into the county. According to many who have done research on this subject, a casino also attracts organized crime. Yes. We may have some of that here now already. That leads to growing issues with drugs, money laundering, prostitution, human trafficking, social decay, as well as other issues, including victimizing the poor. It's just a fact. You'll never hear these reasons mentioned by the people that support the casino. But what you will hear, and it's been said previously, you'll only hear about the money, and the jobs. All of these probable issues that I have discussed this evening, if brought to Nash County, will be located directly across from Nash Community College. Nash Community College houses a daycare. It houses hundreds, literally hundreds, of other young, impressionable students, including an early college. We're also within a mile or so of 2 high schools. We've got an early college at the Nash Community College. Within the Nash Community College, we've got 2 high schools, Northern Nash and Nash Central. And it would be in close proximity to residential areas. And I believe if you'll again do your research, you'll see that the research will tell you that this will negatively impact home values. I don't live within 5 miles or so of it, so it may or may not impact me. But it's going to impact you if you live within proximity, close proximity to the casino. Now, I cannot in good faith ever support any activity that is a proven driver for an increase in these types of unlawful activities. That's my stance, that's where I stand, I'm not moving. You cannot say anything to move me off that position. Now, I'm going to concede this evening, and I think Chairman Davis will speak to the numbers. He's a numbers guy. I'm not bad at numbers, but I'll let him do the numbers stuff. I believe it'll generate some additional revenue, but I do not believe it will offset the immeasurable cost associated with the human factor. My opinion, and it's just my opinion based on the research I've done, is that the human cost will actually exceed the revenue that is generated for the county and the municipalities. So what about the jobs that in the future will be available to me, you, our children, and to our grandchildren? That's such a poor argument. It's such a poor argument. Nash County is a progressive county. We don't want to be Wake County. We don't want to be Las Vegas. We want to be Nash County. And if Wake County moves our way, then we welcome them in, but we're still Nash County. So what about the jobs? Everywhere you go, and I know you go places, whether it's an eating establishment, a retail store, or whatever, what do you see on the door? Help wanted. You see these signs everywhere you go. Just this week, I was over in Nashville. I go over there pretty often, and I see signs out on the street where they're advertising for public works jobs. Recently, I've had 2 financial planners ask me, do you know where I can get some help for my office? These are not bad jobs. These are office jobs that pay pretty good money. They're having problems finding people to fill those positions. The public school system is desperate. Desperate for teachers, assistants, bus drivers. They're desperate. The community college, it needs people at all levels. Pfizer, which employs over 3,000 people, unless I'm mistaken. There were about 2,500 or so when I was there. They always need people. They always need good people. The engine plant, they always need good people. The county needs law enforcement. It needs EMS, fire, social services, health-related personnel, just to name a few. These are all good jobs these are really good jobs. You don't have to question are they good jobs, because you can ask the people that are in the jobs. I'm not saying they're easy jobs. That's why they call it a job. But they're good jobs. Yes, I want to see in addition to these good jobs that are available now as I speak, I want to see other really good jobs that will provide our young people with an avenue to stay in Nash County and have a challenging career as I had at Abbott Laboratories. For example, maybe a major employer for a distribution center or another pharmaceutical manufacturing operation. I do not apologize because I have no desire for my grandson to operate a gaming table. That's not what I want for his future. The fact is that the people in Nash County that are unemployed want to work. If the people in Nash County that are unemployed want to work, they can, and they can work now. Real simple. Now, contrary to what some would have you believe, and I hear it all the time from certain individuals, Nash County's been working hard, and Nash County's been working smart under the leadership of Chairman Davis to bring investment and other good jobs to the county. And I might say with much success since establishing the county's Economic Development Department a few years ago. Let me just briefly share what has been accomplished in the last few years. I don't mean a decade, I don't mean 5 years, I mean the last few years, with investment and good jobs through the county's Economic Development Group. Now I want you to listen closely, because you won't hear this information anywhere else. Total business industry investment, $237.9 million. Providing for 867 total good jobs. And expected to be announced by December, additional investment of $167 million and another 373 good jobs. That totals to investments of $404.9 million and 1,240 good jobs. Now you do the math on that, and I had to check this out with the chairman to make sure I had it right. If you do the math on that, for that amount of money, $404.9 million, and that's real money from companies and businesses that are producing a product where you get something for your money. That $404.9 million on $404.9 million will generate in property tax over $2.7 million in revenue for the county. That's real money. That's real money that we use to do things for the 17 or so departments that we have in Nash County. Sheriff's Office, EMS, Health, for all the departments in Nash County. I want you to add to that residential construction investment, booming in the county, providing for and sustaining, directly and indirectly, hundreds, literally hundreds of other good jobs. And we're just getting started. So in conclusion, I've heard it said many times in past years by a man that I highly admire and respect, my former pastor at Inglewood Baptist Church, Dr. Michael Clover. There's no pastor in this world that I respect and admire more than that man. He's said this many times. What one generation accepts, the next generation embraces. Think about that. What in the world have you, me, we accepted pretty silent in the last 5, 10, 20 years? It's not the country or the place that I imagined I would be in. That statement, what one generation accepts, the next generation embraces, it can be good or it can be bad. A lot of what we accept is good, a lot is bad. The question tonight is, what are we the people willing to accept? Are you willing to gamble, no pun intended, that if a casino comes to Nash County, that it will end well for the county? Or would you prefer to stay the steady and proven course the county has established for investment and really good jobs? I encourage you to let your voice be heard, and soon, through respectful contact with your elected officials. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
Commissioner Robbie Davis, this is going to be the last speaker before Mr. Dozier comes up, but we would like to go ahead and start collecting questions so we can hurry this up a little bit. So, not a rush. But
5 minutes early, if it's okay with you, and let Mr. Dozier have 5 minutes to allow that.
Mr. Dozier, come back this way.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me try something else. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Sorry about that. Two things come to mind when I step up here tonight. First one, I can get a little closer. Thank you. Is how proud my parents would be if they had seen me stand in the pulpit 2 times in 3 weeks. I hope some of you out there knew my parents, Harvey and Marjorie Davis. We grew up in the West Mount community, and they were very involved in the West Mount Baptist Church. The second thing that comes to mind is I saw a almost lifelong question that I had tonight. When I was in the 8th grade at Wilson School, my 8th grade teacher was T.D. Carpenter, the principal's wife. And she made us do a book report every week, and of course you had to skip a week because there were so many of us in the class. Well, we had to read a book, we had to report on it in front of the whole class. So that means you did that 20 times that year, that 40 weeks in the school year, every other time. I kept asking her, Miss Carpenter, why do we have to do this? She kept telling me, sometimes in your life, first of all, she said, it's always good to read books. But she said, more importantly, sometimes in your life, you will run across an occasion that you're going to have to stand before a group and give a presentation. And you will have to do that after 3 other people have given a presentation that have done it much better than you're going to be able to do. So all the practice you can have is going to help you sometime in life. And I now have understood why she told us that. I never thought I'd be behind 2 pastors. And I almost think Commissioner Outlaw turned into one up here. With that said, I'm going to move along. I'd like to be able to first speak on behalf of our board. And speaking about our board, I always like to tell our board members that are here. I know Sue Leggett was here earlier. Sue, are you still here? If you don't mind standing up. Sue Leggett is in District 4. And on the front row here, I had Fred Belfield. Fred, do you mind standing up, sir? Fred has District 2. Sue's in the southern part of the county. Mr. Belfield is in the city of Rocky Mount area. Did any other commissioner slip in? Because I can't see anything out there with those lights, I'll be honest with you. But I appreciate both of you being here. Speaking on behalf of our board, I'm going to be honest with you and tell you about 7 months ago, I was asked to go to a presentation about this casino down at Gateway Partnership as chairman of the board. I did go down there to that presentation, and I learned pretty much what was going on. Prior to going in there, I had to sign a non-disclosure clause, which we have to do quite a bit in community or industrial recruitment. Therefore, when I left there, I couldn't talk about anything that was shown to me in there. And I'm just a guy, if I say something, I'm going to do my best to do what I say I'm going to do. And I said I wouldn't talk about it, so therefore I didn't talk about it. I did not even go out board. I kept asking them over a period of 6 months to please come and make this presentation to the entire Nash County Board. They kept telling me each month, we're not ready to do that yet. I really couldn't understand that at that point in time. I now understand why they weren't willing to do that. When it broke on WRAL 3 times in about 2 weeks, and myself as well as other commissioners started getting phone calls asking us what we knew about a casino in Nash County, I had to, at that point, pull our board together and meet with them in an economic development closed session and tell them or go over with them and explain to them what had been said in public. I still couldn't reveal what I heard in that meeting 7 months earlier. But quite a bit by that time had been let out in the public, and therefore we had a good discussion. I hope to leave that meeting, quite frankly, with a decision by the board that we just did not want this. We have a board that works together very well, a very diverse board. We have males, we have females, we have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have minorities, and we have Caucasians on that board. But I don't think any of the board members will tell you that we do not work together well. What we were able to accomplish in that meeting, because we had different feelings about it. Some of us just didn't want it. Some of them wanted for the economic part of it and the jobs. And it was my job as chairman to see what we could leave that meeting with as unified as we could be. And as Commissioner Outlaw said, the vice chairman, we left that meeting with a resolution that simply said, we wish, if this is going to come to Nash County, to allow our people to have a vote on it. That vote by our Board of Commissioners in open session after the closed session was a 6-1 vote. The only difference in one commissioner, and I've said this before, and Mr. Arrington, I don't think I have an issue with that. He was in favor of having the referendum, but he felt like it should only be the people in the city of Rocky Mount to vote on it and not the entire county. That's the only difference we had. Therefore, he chose to vote against it, and certainly that's his right. I felt like it affected all of Nash County. I will tell you that the 4 Republicans on the board are all totally against this casino coming to Nash County at all. I didn't check today, and maybe I should have, with each one of them. Of course, you understand where Commissioner Outlaw stands, and I have seen Commissioner Legg today and Commissioner Combs, but they didn't ask that specific question. Prior to making that statement at the last public meeting we had like this, I checked with each one of them, but I'm sure their positions have not changed. So that's where we are as a board. And it's my job to represent the board because they chose to allow me to be chairman for it, and I appreciate those votes. I have been in Nash County for a very long time. I won't tell you how long. Some of you know how old I am, and most of you will think if I tell you that I don't really look my age, and I appreciate that. But anyway, I left 2 years to finish up school. Other than that, I've been right here. The thing that, a couple of things that bother me, Commissioner Outlaw said I was a number cruncher, and quite frankly, that's generally how I make my decisions. I make it by crunching the numbers, see where they look, and I make it based on the facts that I can find on any given subject. And there are a lot of facts out there about casinos, and if you read enough studies, you can find studies that will support either position. And I, unlike the previous speaker, I hope there are some people here tonight that are in favor of this casino, because it's our job to hopefully inform both sides what the facts are, and hopefully we may gain or talk a few of those that may be in favor of understanding the numbers. So we ask all people to come, and I'm not going to have a show of hands, it's not necessary. But the facts are, as I have learned, and I'm not going to quote particular studies because I'm going to try to speed it up just a little bit and move on and get through, because I really like to hear where Mr. Dozier is again tonight and see if he has changed his mind. But 40.6% of all gamblers are indeed problem gamblers. Gambling, as Commissioner Outlaw said, is not an industry. To be an industry, you have to produce a product or you have to distribute a product of some kind. A casino will indeed hurt true economic development. There are many studies that show that, and that's the last thing we want with a new economic team in Nash County that's doing a wonderful job. Just this afternoon, I had to rush over here because we had a ribbon cutting for Natural Crump, which is up on the Universal Lease property, a great industry from Canada. They take sweet potatoes that are grown in Nash County and they produce dog treats. We've toured that facility. I have been working with it for about 3 years, a great family-run business from Canada. And they are just so excited to be here. They are spending well over $20 million, and they have hired 90 people already, and it will take 180 to fill the first phase of this plant, and there are 3 more phases they project will happen. As Mr. Outlaw said, I asked Joe Crump today, Joe, what's been your biggest challenge so far? He quickly told me, finding employees to run my plant. He said, it's been a challenge. He said, I knew it would be a little bit of one, but it's been much harder. He said, I have got 80 at this point in time, but I need 180. So there are great jobs available. I know what they pay at Natural Crump. It's not my place to say that because it is a private company, but they pay well, I would tell you that. I think many of our people will be tickled to death to have that salary. But that's the kind of industry we need coming to Nash County, and we have a lot in the pipeline of similar companies like that. Our economic team, as Commissioner Outlaw said, is doing a wonderful job. A few other facts about the casino is 80% of people that visit a casino that is not located in a resort area. Now, is there anyone here that believes our casino would be in a resort area? I don't think so, but even if it was, 80% of the visits there come within a 30 to 40 mile radius of that casino. So it's going to be our people that visits that. And remember that 6% of the population of a given area is what spends the money in those casinos, 6%. Well, we know who that 6% is generally going to be, or a lot of them. And I said that the last time, and I got accused of making a racial statement. That's not a racial statement. I'm sorry. What I mean by that is I'm talking about my people. I run a construction company. I work all nationalities of people, quite frankly. But those are the people that are going to visit that casino. When I go in the convenience store now, I have to stand behind my own people to buy my Sundrop that I buy about 2 or 3 times a day. But, you know, it's their money. They can choose to do that. But they don't really need any more temptation because they got things at home they need to tend to. They got children that they need to look after. But it is a very bad thing for our lower paid population, and not necessarily lower, but even middle income, and that's the people that are going to spend that money there. Moving on to the numbers, and if you study the numbers, it really becomes obvious that it's questionable whether it will pay its own way or not. The bill, or the proposed bill, and I've had a lot of discussions. I have spoken to Speaker Moore 3 times about this. Sue and I were lucky enough to catch him on Saturday at a meeting that we went in, and we had a good discussion with him. I have spoken to Phil Berger 2 times about this, and those guys just are not moving much, I'll tell you that. More so than Berger. Of course, Moore has a casino in his area already, and I would expect him to be a little bit more helpful to us. But I do see some cracks in the door because we are pounding so hard, and we need your help to keep that drum playing, quite frankly. Make those phone calls. But if indeed, if it takes in, let me get myself on track. But for the money it takes in, if it were to come here, every $1 million that it takes in, the city of Rocky Mount will get $2,950. Every $1 million that it takes in, the city of Rocky Mount will get $2,950. I can prove that number, and the bill, as it's written now, unless the bill changes, it simply says that of the funds that come in, the host county will get 5%. 80 other counties will get 10 more percent. 79 other counties, quite frankly, because the host county cannot get any of the funds that will be divvied up between the other counties. You get your 5%, you do not get anything else. But when you take 5% of the $1 million and you split it down, it also is going to be divvied out like one section of our sales tax. There are several sales tax that we receive, but one of them is divvied out between the cities and the county by a certain formula. And the Board of Commissioners get to check off and decide which formula they want to use. We usually do it by population. Population is the most fairest way to do it. It takes a little bit of money from the county and puts it into the towns, but it is the fairest way to do it, and we've been like that the whole 21 years that I've been a commissioner. And if you take that and break it down, like I say, the city of Rocky Mount's part is going to be $2,950. The gambling proceeds is just not going to even touch the cost that the city would have if they choose to annex this property. The property is now located in Nash County. It is not in the city of Rocky Mount. It is in their ETJ, and they could choose to annex it, and I would think they would. But then you go to the property Avalon tax side of it. Yes, it will be an increase in Avalon tax if indeed they spend $500 million here, like it's proposed that they will do in the proposed bill. That will give Nash County an additional $3,350,000 Avalon tax. You heard what Mr. Outlaw just quoted, and I won't go back over his figures, that we have already done that in the last 3 years. We're doing it another way. We're doing it by bringing industry, true industry, to Nash County. Nash County is doing well, and I got kind of chewed out our staff, some of them particularly our manager and our finance director when I made that statement the other night. But we do good. We are very frugal with the funds over there, and I don't think you'll find another county, probably in the United States, that has had the same tax rate for 15 years straight. We have not given you a raise your property tax for 15 years. And I thank the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Belfield right there on the front row is as proud of that number as any of us. You agree, Mr. Belfield?
Right.
And he works very hard to help us do that. And it's not hard because we all think that way, quite frankly. And we will continue to try to keep it at the rate that it's in. I can never stand here and tell you it will always be 0.67 cents. But I will promise you this, the 7 of us will do all we can to keep it at 67 cents. And we've done a lot of things at keeping that tax rate. You look at the schools we have built. You look at the new facilities we have built, the jailhouses, the new EMS stations, and the list is very long. So we are proud of what we've done. We don't need to take a chance with this revenue to help Nash County do what it wants to do. As long as you people pay your taxes like you do, and believe me, we thank you every day the citizens of Nash County pay their taxes. We again this year have over a 99% collection rate. That's another thing. We subject, most of the time I go look for people that are much smarter than I am and read what they have to say about things. And it generally doesn't take me too long to find that person that is smarter than I am, I'll be honest with you. But a person that I mentioned the other night that I think a lot of, he was in our house for a long time, is an attorney from Apex named Skip Stan. I expect some of you may remember that name. Had he stayed there, he would, I'm sure, be the speaker and would still be there. He chose to go back to private practice. It's tough to make a living and be in the General Assembly because you get paid about $13,000 a year. I don't know how to do it. But he chose not to continue to do that. But he wrote a paper that he sent out just a week or two ago. And he listed 10 reasons why you really should consider having a casino in your area. First one is social economic cost. Casinos have been associated with various social issues such as increased crimes, gambling, addiction, and higher rates of bankruptcy. Number two, the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. Casinos exploit vulnerable individuals, including problem gamblers and those from lower income backgrounds. That's what worries me a lot, from lower income backgrounds, because that's the people that I deal with every day, that I've been dealing with for 40 years running our company, construction company. Economic impacts on local businesses. While casinos may create job opportunities, studies have shown that they can harm local businesses. And I think you're all smart enough to know how that can happen. There's only so much money to spend in a given area. Regressive tax implications. Unpredictable revenue sources. Relying on casino revenue to fund public services is risky, to say the least. Corrupt and organized crime. Gambling industry has historically been associated with corruption and links to organized crime. Negative impact on local culture and tourism. We have a lot of things in Rocky Mount that bring people to our area. The sports complex is a wonderful thing. It has built a youth sports network in our area, and the county is involved in that too now with our park system. And it is amazing how many kids come to this area. If you go out on the weekends, you see a lot of families in our restaurants that you realize are not from here. They're here because of our sports industry that we have built between the city of Rocky Mount and Nash County. And it's a growing thing, and it will continue to grow. We have other tourism attractions here, and the Mill Village is just a great thing as well. The Capital Broadcasting has invested in. Some argue that the establishment of casino can diminish the unique cultural aspects and historic charm of a community. Negative impact on public health. Studies have shown that areas with casinos often experience an increase in mental health issues, substance abuse, and even suicide rates. Evaporation of wealth. Casinos are designed to generate profits for their owners, as several speakers have said, often at the expense of the wealth in a local community. Last one has been said before, possible decline in property values. The presence of a casino can lead to decline in property areas, property value in a fairly large radius around that casino. One of my biggest concerns is not on the list, but it is how it affects true economic development. Everybody's had a little say in here tonight. Mine is Yogi Berra, who we all know, a former Yankee catcher, said, if you do not know where you are going, you will always end up somewhere else. We do not want to end up somewhere else. We know where we are going in Nash County. We know where we're going with our economic development. I am going to sit down real quick, and I'm going to ask Mr. Dozier if he would come up and get his 5 minutes that I have left him, and then we'll certainly have questions. And I apologize for us being here so long tonight, but I hope it has been informational enough that you would allow for a little bit of extra time. Ken, thank you.
If I offended anybody with the statement I made a while ago, I'm just a country boy being country. But there's certain body functions have to be took care of when they need it. My name is Kent Dozier. not Mr. Dozier, it's Kent Dozier.
Yes, sir.
Why am I here? I spoke at another meeting we had, and when I left home, my wife knows I love to talk. Ford Motor Company, General Motors, they want to get a hold of my mouth when I die, but they don't understand how it keeps running. That's just But anyway, I love to talk, but most of my talking is at the cafe, on the farm, under the barn shelter. It's not in front of a crowd of people. My mouth gets dry, lose my thought. When I was in school, and one of the school classmates was out here, him and his wife, I did not like English literature, I did not like grammar, I did not like history or geography. But I did like sports, I liked the future farmers of America, I liked any kind of mathematical things that we had going on, and I really loved study hall. So I majored in study hall, first of all. Anyway, if I say things that are not proper, if I use the word T-O when I should be T-O-O, as long as you get the gist of what I'm saying, that's all I care about. It's not fun. Why am I here? In the other meeting, when I left home, I told my wife, I didn't promise her, I've said this before, I didn't promise her, but I did say, I'm not going to speak tonight. She said, right. Well, I sat on that side about halfway back, kept my mouth closed until it come time for the question and answer session. And then a gentleman on the other side of the room mentioned something about the landowners. Well, I happen to be one of the landowners that this casino is coming to. I've got 3 addresses. I've got more than that, but I've got 3 addresses on a piece of property, all 3 of them on this property where this casino is at. Now, the first I heard about a casino is probably the same time these other folks heard about it, after I signed the contract. Like I said before, I was led to think it was something like Cabela's, Dick's Sporting Goods, or some major pub business to come in, go strip things around, small business, restaurant stuff. Had I known it was what they had got, they would not have my signature on the paper. If I could get my name off that signature, my signature off that paper today, I would take it off gladly. Now, I mentioned the last time that my section of this money was about $3 million to me. Now, I didn't say it's exact, but it's pretty close. And that's a lot of money for me to say I'd give up. I'd give it up right now if they tear that contract up. I mentioned before I had another company out of Wilmington that had approached me. The last time we talked was the Monday after Thanksgiving. They were willing to buy my land for, at the time, the highest price than the casino. 2 hours after we talked with that gentleman in Wilmington, the lawyer in Raleigh that represents the casino that I hadn't heard from in 3 months was on the phone with me, and he upped the price. Yet, every time I asked that gentleman, what are you putting out there? He said, you'll be happy, it's 80% white collar jobs. And it's like I said at the last meeting, on Sunday I got a white collar on. Monday I got a brown, blue, whatever color it is. But colors don't tell me what your money and what your job is. Had he said and been truthful. I have found out since this last meeting that this thing's been going on a long time behind the scenes that they would not tell us about. And I think, Rob, I believe you said that there was a non-disclosure thing you need to sign and they didn't want you to say. Well, in one part of the contract that they drew up for me had a non-disclosure statement. They did not want anybody to know what they were telling me, what they were offering me. And I told them, you're buying my property, you're not buying me. You don't own me. I'm not signing anything, you can forget the deal. Well, I signed my contract probably about 8 months after my other family members. There's 10 tracts of land that's in my relatives. Each one of us got our own sections. But I held out for a long time because I'm the only one in the family that actually lives in a residence on this property. And it's a house my great-granddaddy probably started around 1900. My granddaddy lived there, raised his family, and I've been there for 50 years. I just assumed for it to stay farming like it was. I don't care. Now, I love to pray. I am a Christian, and I'm grateful for that. And I see things in my life where God has laid stepping stones and put me through things I thought I'd never be. But me and my wife, when we started out, we had the very basics to get started. We done a lot of praying, and we got tired of going to the grocery store and looking at price tags. And one of our prayers was, I hope one day we'll get to where we can go pick something up that we want and don't have to look at the tag, just get it. Well, we got that way. I mean, I am not talking about high dollar things, but my budget has been comfortable without this casino. Now, I knew that the land we had and the development going around, something was going on, and I was misled. Well, that money looked good. There was opportunities that I saw that I never had before. And again, I say, it's not what we thought it would be. I found out later on that Norris Tolson, that Gateway Partnerships, Adam Matthews, the Rocky Mountain Chamber of Commerce, and Tony Copeland, the lobbyist for the casino, and the one that sent me the option money check, they were all buddies from way back. Norris and Tony Copeland and Raleigh worked with the state together. They cannot tell me, I don't know this for a fact, but they cannot tell me and convince me that they didn't know this behind the scenes and knew what they were doing and they didn't want to know. But anyway, I found out something, explain some of it about these contracts, and I know my 5 minutes is up, but they've only got an option. But on my tract of land, my next neighbor to me, my cousin, that tract of land, and one other person, that's 4 tracts of land really, but it's 3 families. Those are locked in, signed, sealed, notarized, and delivered, cannot be broken contracts. All they got to do is say, here's the money, we buying it. I kept it, I have to take it. The other ones in my family, on one tract, there's one person owns a third of that tract. They've got some family members that own 1/4 of a third, 4 of them, and there's 2 more that own a half of a third each. So there's 7 people. Only one person in that other option is signed. That is the circumstance for about 6 of these tracts of land. One owner owns just a percentage. That's the only one that signed it. The rest of them have not gave that individual the authority, power of attorney, or any other thing to sign it. So I called a lawyer, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. I said, is that a valid contract? He said, yes and no. He said, they can't force the ones that have not signed to sign anything. But just to give you some simple thoughts, they can come in, and if one person has signed and 2 hadn't, they can come in and pay that one person their part of the land, and now they are the owners with the other 2. Once they get all of them in a bind like that, they'll come up and then they'll put it in a bind and put it up for public auction and force them to sell it. And then it's not going to bring what they were going to pay because the values are going to be down. So my request to you tonight is pray about this thing. But if anybody's in here is a lawyer, if you know a lawyer, have a friend with a lawyer, and they know any way under the sun to break those options that's only got one signature, we need to know it. Because I believe there's enough property that they'll start backing off if they can't get their hands in it. So I don't know. So I'll leave you with this. If you've got anybody you know can help us on those options, let me know. Thank you for your time.
We're going to go on to questions now. Anybody else have any questions? First, $1 million question. Is the casino a done deal? Everybody can probably answer that. Is the casino a done deal?
I would definitely say the casino is not a done deal. It is a proposed bill only. There is a lot of opposition to it, particularly by House members. And what we hope will happen is that they will not pass it in the budget, and they'll bring it to the floor for discussion like it should be, and allow all members to vote on it without having to tie it to the budget. There's a lot of movement headed in that way, it seems like. I've spent most of my day today calling legislators from all over the state, seeing how they feel about it. So I would say it's definitely not a done deal.
If Nash County, oh, go ahead.
On that, thank you. The House Republican Caucus, there's 72 members of the House Republican Caucus. They are scheduled potentially to meet next Tuesday to discuss this matter and to take a vote within the caucus. And the caucus has a unofficial rule that if a majority of members of the caucus do not support an issue, they will not move forward with it. And so please be in prayer and also act as you feel led to contact your legislators about this issue before next Tuesday. I know it's a holiday weekend, but they definitely need to hear from you. If a majority of the caucus, House Republican Caucus, maintains a position in opposition to this, it's very possible that it will not move forward.
If Nash County Commissioners vote against the casino, what happens?
Well, honestly, Nash County Commissioners will not get the opportunity to vote for or against the casino. It's been handled at the state level on purpose.
So, somebody asked earlier, I think, the casino bill, that came from the Senate, right?
That is correct.
Land deal expires 12/31/23. Will this be decided by then?
If everybody prays enough, it won't be decided by then. You never know if it gets approved through the budget bill, it could happen before then, but then there's still a lot of work to do to close on all those properties. And I have spoken to 15 out of the 17 landowners, and I will share this with you. Not one of the 15 of you is going to be for a casino. Each one of them had a different opinion about that. But it has a long way to go to at least tie the properties up. It looks like they were not done in the best manner, as Mr. Dozier said.
Thanks, sir. All the road work being done on Old Carriage Road, is this in anticipation of the casino?
I will be very truthful with that. There is no connection between the improvements on the roadway that you see going on out there and the casino. We worked on that. I'm the Nash County member of the MPO, which is the Municipal Planning Organization. Probably about 8 or 9 years ago to try to get that interchange at 95. We were able to get it, myself and many others that worked on it during Mayor Combs' term, get it added to the long-range plan. The only thing that looks a little bit questionable to me at the last moment, it did get moved up about 2 to 3 years here fairly recently because it had a date, a start date at one time of 2026.
Have there been any conversations with the community college system or the Board of Education to challenge placement of the casino if the court does pass it? Have there been any conversations with the community college, Nash Community College, or the Board of Education about the location?
Now, can I answer that one? Because that's my question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have there been any communications with the community college system, not Nash County, community college system and the Board of Education to challenge the location of it?
Exactly. We got
Not the college, but the
hospitals less
system
than a
of
mile.
both educational departments.
So your question is, has Nash Community College challenged the location?
Has the state community college system challenged it because of where it's located?
Not to
And
my
the state
knowledge.
Board of Education.
Not to my knowledge.
There's a lot of With 1,100 violent crimes annually in Rocky Mount versus the state's 399 violent crimes annually, why would we consider an adult-only venue that could have adverse effects? Mayor Robertson suggested that the 5% tax base will be used to bolster law enforcement and education. Is this true of the tax base for the Rocky Mount Event Center? If so, may we see the data? So basically, it sounds like we have more crime in Rocky Mount than that throughout the state. And they're saying, why would we do this? And so the mayor suggested that the 5% tax base will be used to bolster law enforcement. I guess they're asking us that. Will they take that 5% of the money that's coming in? Is that directly going to law enforcement?
That is a question you have to ask Mayor Robertson. I wouldn't be able to answer that for you. They would get, I told you what they'd get per million, which is $2,950, but I'm not sure what the city would choose to do with it.
Rocky Mount noted at a city rank at 10% cities for violent crime and sex trafficking. How would a casino affect this statistic?
It's only going to increase. Casinos are magnets for criminal activity. Prostitution, as you've heard multiple times, human trafficking, other illegal gambling, those types of things. So it's, I think the questions about law enforcement and funding for law enforcement are particularly relevant because crime is definitely going to increase. If decades and decades of research on the impact of casinos on communities applies the same as in Rocky Mount as it would elsewhere.
Is there any truth to a Buc-ee's, a Tanger Outlets, or a Bass Pro Shop?
I would say that property has been worked on for at least the last 15 years. I'm sure Mr. Dozier would back that up. And I need to say one more time, when I answer these questions, I'm answering for myself and not for the Board of Commissioners. I'll be glad to answer for District Number 7, but it will not necessarily reflect the whole board. But there have been many things that have gotten out as potential uses for that property, including everything you said except for Buc-ee's. I haven't heard any thing, and Buc-ee's not going to put one too close, and we all saw it was announced that one was going to go with Bevan, would be their first one in North Carolina. I think that would be too close to have one located in that location, but that again would be Buc-ee's decision to make that.
Basically, this one says, I'm summarizing, just how is it best for the citizens to contact whoever would be making a decision, passing this one? What's the best method?
Well, I think it's important to contact the caucus that has been mentioned here tonight. They are meeting, and as it has been indicated, if a majority of that caucus supports it, then it will move forward. Contact everyone